Greetings and welcome back. We are in Senior English A, and our objective now for the hour is to be working with our involvement in Macbeth Act 3. So let's now be in your hymnals on page 379. Let's just review where we've been. Macbeth is a play where you will find a man who is a tremendous warrior, who is named because of his success on the battlefield, ostensibly second in command to the king. And being named Thane of Cawdor is not enough. It's, what's the famous line? Power corrupts, what is it, Mr. Durant? And absolute power corrupts. Absolutely, that's right. We kind of have this sense, right? So Macbeth cannot settle with the Thane of Cawdor. Or as Mr. Keeley would like to point out, maybe he was good with it, but what is it? Evil companionships corrupt good morals, and the peer pressure kicks in, and Lady Macbeth gets in his ear, etc. They decide to jack King Duncan. That, of course, is the major event of Act 2. By the end of Act 2, two important things for your notes. One, Duncan is gone. We don't have him involved in the play anymore. And two, Macbeth has ascended the throne. From this point on in the play, interesting just side note, from this point on in the play, pretty much every time you see Macbeth, he comes onto the stage, he's got a drink in his hand. I'm talking alcohol. What's significant about that?
He's trying to get rid of his conscience.
He's trying to stay inebriated so he doesn't have to look face to face with what it is that he's done. Question, do you think it's going to work? No, it's not going to work. Macbeth is not going to be able to run away from the, are you ready for this? The murders that he will say later are sticking on his hands. It's an interesting word picture because blood, when it starts to coagulate and dry on the hands, is sticky. For anyone that's ever gutted an animal, for example, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a powerful word picture here for Macbeth, okay? The other thing that we will say about Macbeth's costuming is that crown never seems to fit quite right. He's always kind of pushing it back up onto the top of his head. It's a little too big, the crown, just a little too big. And his robe doesn't quite fit it, okay? Now, we began Act 3 with Macbeth pointing out he is not done. Okay? To be thus is nothing but to be safely thus. Our fears in who? Banquo stick deep. Yeah. And then he's going to call in two cutthroats, two assassins, two murderers, and he's going to convince them that they need to kill Banquo. He says he could do it, but he's got this problem that he's the king, and kings aren't supposed to go around killing their subjects. And so he's going to let these two guys do it for him. And now I'm on 379. We will find on 379 a very brief soliloquy by Lady Macbeth. So 3.2, you want to put this in your notes. 3.2 is important because we're going to get a brief picture into Lady Macbeth's psychic state. How good is she handling this whole thing of killing the king and her husband has become king? Well, let's take a look at it. She will say, when she's totally alone on stage for a brief soliloquy on page 379, this is 3.2, line 5 or so, take a look at it. She says, "Naught's had, all's spent, where our desire is got without content." Now that is interesting. We'll want to summarize what she just said in our notes. Can you put it in your own notes? What is it she just said? Naught's had, all's spent, where our desire is got without content. What does it mean to be contented? You're happy, you're pleased with what you've got. What does it mean to say, naught's had, all's spent? This is that line I was working with earlier, right? She got what she wanted, power. She lost what she had. What would you say she lost? What does she say that she lost? What's her word? Contentment. Yeah, so what does this tell you about Lady Macbeth and her status as now being the Queen of Scotland? Yay, I got to be Queen of Scotland. She says it means, wow, let's let her finish with the word picture here. "'Tis safer to be that which we destroy." Whoa, who's that? She says, Duncan is safer than I am. What is the problem with killing a king and becoming a king? Think about this for a moment. What's the one problem with doing that? How did you get to become king? You had to kill somebody. What's the problem with doing that and becoming king and then going to bed at night when you lay down to go to sleep? Right. Why every time you lay down you shut your eyes? See, this is the problem with all bullies. Think about this for a moment. The problem with being a bully and speaking badly about someone and hurting them or whatever is that you are forever having to look over your shoulder, metaphorically speaking. How come? Right. If you can be mean to other people and hurt their reputation and be mean to them, physically abuse them, however it is it works, you obviously know if I can get away with it, right? This is the problem with being a good liar. The better a liar you are, the more worried you are, because you know you can fool other people. There's got to be other people out there in the world who can fool you, and you never can trust. Lady Macbeth will say this exact thing right here. She says, I cannot sleep. I cannot be content. It's better to be Duncan, which is to say, it's better to be dead. Knots had all spent, where our desires got without content. 'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in. Look what she calls her joy. Doubtful joy. In other words, she got what she wanted, but she's got nothing of what she had. And where is the joy? Gone. Now, let's point it out for your notes. Shakespeare writes these plays to entertain, no doubt. No doubt. But he also writes these plays to teach us something. Sometimes we think we want something, we go and we get that something, and then we find ourselves not always so happy with what we got. Macbeth will come on stage. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth will have an interesting conversation where ultimately, I'm on page 380, where ultimately he has to confide to Lady Macbeth, we've scorched the steak, not killed it, will be a line he will use later. That is to say, he is not in a good place either. So let's point out right away, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth both share in common what? Discontentment, psychological discontentment. Notice Lady Macbeth will say on page 380, come on, gentle, my lord, sleek o'er your rugged looks. I'm at line 26. Tell me what this means. Sleek o'er your rugged looks. Be bright and jovial among your guests tonight. Dude, this is before the big party, right? And Lady Macbeth will tell her husband, sleek o'er your rugged looks. What does that mean? Right, she's back to this thing. Look, your face is giving it all away. You clearly do not look like a man who is happy to be king. You need to make sure you're faking it some more. Look at what Macbeth will say at line 35. One of the greater word pictures Shakespeare ever invented. He imagines, some of us have had this feeling when we, for example, are working with guilty conscience or whatever. He imagines that his head has been sawn, the cap of his brain taken off, and someone drops live scorpions onto his brain and then puts the skull back on and sews him up. My mind, he says, is full of scorpions. It's a powerful word picture. It'll also remind us that when Macbeth killed Duncan, what did he swear that he heard the house whisper? Macbeth hath murdered what? Sleep. I'll not sleep ever again. And sure enough, this is what's happening. From a psychological perspective, Macbeth is suffering from what we would call sleep deprivation. He hasn't been sleeping, and because he hasn't been sleeping and he's already been given to a little bit of this hallucination stuff, he's starting to lose it. He mentally, let's say it this way, he mentally is breaking down. All right? We will then finish with Macbeth saying, you know, it's all right. It's all going to be fine. And he calls his wife his dearest Chuck, which is an interesting kind of phrase. And of course, Lady Macbeth gets for a second an insight that Macbeth is about to do something really nasty. She has no clue what's going on. Notice how now Macbeth's the guy wearing the pants in the family in terms of murder, right? Before it was Lady Macbeth saying, we got to do this and this and this. Now it's notice completely changed. All right, here we go. 3-2.
If Banquo gone from court?
Aye, madam, but returns again tonight.
Say to the king I would attend his leisure for a few words.
Madam, I will.
Naught had or spent, where our desire is got without content. Safer to be that which we destroy, and by destruction dwell in doubtful joy. How now, my lord, why do you keep alone? Of sorriest fancies your companions making, using those thoughts which should indeed have died with them they think on. Things without all remedy should be without regard. What's done is done.
We've scotched the snake, not killed it. She'll close and be herself, whilst our poor malice remains in danger of her former tooth. But let the frame of things disjoint, both the worlds suffer ere we will eat our meal in fear, and sleep in the affliction of these terrible dreams that shake us nightly. Better be with the dead, whom we to gain our peace have sent to peace.
He says it's better to be Duncan.
Torture of the mind to lie in restless ecstasy. Duncan's in his grave. After life's fitful fever, he sleeps well. Treason has done his worst. Nor steel, nor poison, malice domestic, foreign levy, nothing can touch him further.
Duncan's
Come
safe.
on, gentle, my lord. Sleek o'er your rugged looks. Be bright and jovial among your guests tonight.
So shall I love. And so I pray to you, let your remembrance apply to Banquo. Present him eminence both with eye and tongue. Unsafe the while that we must lave our honours in these flattering streams, and make our faces vizards to our hearts, disguising what they are.
You must leave this.
Oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Thou knowest that Banquo in this field lives.
But in them nature's copies not eternal.
There's comfort yet, they are assailable. Then be thou jocund. Ere the bat hath flown his cloistered flight, ere to black Hecate's summons the shard-born beetle with his drowsy hums has rung night's yawning peal, there shall be done a deed of dreadful note.
What's to be done?
Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Come, sealing night,
Sounds like his wife, huh?
scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with thy bloody and invisible hand cancel and tear to pieces that great bond which keeps me pale. Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, whiles night's black agents to their praise do rouse. Thou marvelst at my words, but hold thee still. Things bad begun make strong themselves by ill. So, prithee, go with me.
Now, just to prove that Shakespeare is assuming you're a pretty bright viewer of this play, he's not going to use the words fair and foul. But take a look at the last lines that Macbeth just speaks, and go ahead and play the game with me real quick. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air. What ironically, what is it that he just said about things that are bad can only get better by becoming more bad? Right, remember Frederick calls it worse. What? Go back over that again? I need to understand that strange psychological twist. Well, things are really bad, but don't worry, they're going to get better because I'm going to make them worse. That's exactly what he said. Go back, look at it one more time. There's dark irony here. Macbeth says, don't worry, things are looking bad, but I know they're going to get better because I'm going to make things worse. And then we're all going to be fine. Now, of course, the audience knows what's he talking about. Well, yeah, all you got to do is skip across to the next page and realize that 3-3, what's going to happen in 3-3? Macbeth's going to make sure his best friend gets his throat cut. In fact, we're going to be told they stab him over 20 times to make sure that he really is jacked. Whoa! But before we get to the murder of his best friend, Macbeth says, don't worry, I'm going to make everything better by making it worse. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. He says, I'd like to sleep, but I can't sleep because my mind is full of scorpions. He says it's better to be Duncan. Notice that both Lady Macbeth and Macbeth will both say, it'd be a lot better if I was just dead. Now, the curse is, I can't sleep, he says. And because I can't sleep, I find myself constantly, my mind is working. Any of us that have ever been in a situation where we couldn't sleep at night, we will report, this is rough. Sleep deprivation, am I right about this, Mr. Keeley? It can begin to affect you, where you can't sleep, you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't go back to sleep. Some of us have been in moments of stress where we can't rest or whatever, and we find ourselves, once you can't sleep, you wake up in the morning from just a really brief bit of sleeping, and then all of a sudden you got to go through your whole day. Of course, you try and stay awake during your day, and you keep nodding off. Then all of a sudden, in the one moment when you should be able to sleep at night, all of a sudden everything wakes up in your brain, and your brain starts thinking, and then you can't sleep. And you're like, tell yourself, knock it off, or I'm going to stop this. And of course, to say I'm not going to think about X is the one thing that you're doing. You're thinking about X, whatever X is. I'm not going to think about X. I'm not going to think about X. I'm not going to think about X. Stop thinking about X. And it's like over and over, just kind of what we call in psychological terms, you start looping. Your mind starts looping. It's like a CD that gets stuck, right? And you can't get off of it. And you think you're off of it, and then you come back to it again. Then you're off of it, and then you come back to it. Over a period of time, this can really start to affect you. What is it Macbeth is really probably most jacked about, do you think? You think it's the murder of Duncan. What else could it be? Think about what else could it be. Notice she says, the first thing she says to him when he comes on stage is, you need to stop being so alone. Why do you think he's spending so much time alone now?
Because he's going to kill his best friend.
See, this is the thing. Some of you will say killing Duncan is what's really jacking with him. Others of you will say, that's one thing. But to kill the very best friend you got, we're not done. Wait a minute. He's not just going to kill Banquo. What's his goal? He's a child killer as well. He's not only going to kill his best friend, he's going to kill his best friend's son, Fleance. Some of you will argue, as bad as it is to kill Duncan, that's probably a worse crime. To not only kill your best friend, but kill your best friend's young boy, that is like the lowest of the low. I use that term intentionally, the lowest of the low. In other words, we start high with Macbeth as a character, but by this point already, we're starting to see, you can't get much lower, but guess what? We will. What? No, we will. We'll get lower. By Act 4, Scene 2, you can put it at 3A. By Act 4, Scene 2, we will actually be lower than we are right here, and we're pretty low. In other words, this is a play where right about the moment the audience thinks it can't get any worse, it always gets worse, okay? And the audience watches then a man who is a really, really evil bad guy. But he didn't start out that way. He didn't start out that way at all. All right, let's go to how you kill somebody on stage in Shakespeare's world, shall we? Let's talk about murder on stage. This is always an intriguing question when we watch movies, isn't it? Now, right now at 3A, you could jot down a movie that for you is the most graphic representation of murder you've ever seen. For some of you, it's somebody getting blown away by a bullet or a shell or something like that, right? For others of you, it's physical, cutting somebody, stabbing somebody. For others of you, it's some of the torture scenes that you've watched in a film or whatever. Shakespeare, let's point out, Shakespeare is fighting an uphill battle to show killing on stage. let's just think about the ways you know. I'm working now at 3A. Let's think about Shakespeare's history of killing on stage. It's an interesting history. Let me ask you a couple of questions to prove what I'm talking about. You remember quite a bit of Romeo and Juliet, whether you wish to admit it or not. Jot down from your remembrance of Romeo and Juliet, what is the murders that take place or the killings that take place in that play? Just write them down. I'm talking about on stage. I'm talking about you literally watch someone get stabbed, for example, fall to the ground and die. In Romeo and Juliet, can you remember that ever happening? By the way, it does happen. When does it happen? Because remember, when Romeo walks on stage for the first time, very first time we see Romeo, the very first thing he says is, he comments on a pool of blood. He doesn't comment on a dead body, because the dead body actually was never seen. Shakespeare does not like to show killing on stage very often, and he won't do it very often. Rarely will we see guy killing another guy on stage. When does it happen in Romeo and Juliet, by the way? There's two pivotal moments when there's actually killing that happens on stage in Romeo and Juliet.
Lucretio
Do you remember?
and Romeo and Juliet.
Of course, Romeo and Juliet and the killing of themselves and that suicide, that's a problem of a different kind. I'm talking about when character kills character.
Lucretio and Tybalt.
You're right. The famous fight scene, remember, where Romeo gets in the way between the two guys who are fighting and they wound each other. Then Romeo turns around and has to fight against Tybalt, and what does he end up doing? Killing him right on stage, and then he screams to the rafters of the Globe Theater, "I am fortune's slave." In other words, I got the crummiest luck in the whole wide world. By the way, the other one, that's the only major two murders or fighting deaths. The other one is when Romeo kills Paris at the end of the play. It sometimes shocks students to realize that by the end of the play, Romeo's killed two people. Romeo's killed two people. He's actually responsible for the death of three people. One, of course, is his best pal, Mercutio. Romeo is responsible for three murders or three killings in that play about love. Wait a minute. We'll keep going. In your sophomore year, we read the play Julius Caesar. Jot down real quickly at 3A. See, we're studying killing on stage. What is the killing on stage in Julius Caesar? That's fascinating. Here again, to repeat what Mr. Keeley just said, Keeley's thinking all of a sudden, whoa. In both those plays, Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar, they're suicides. You're right. The taking of your life on stage happens in Shakespeare's plays. But I'm talking about where character goes against character. The most famous in JC is what? Yeah, obviously they assassinate Caesar, right? They kill him in the Capitol building, don't they, right? And that is a very, very brutal, that's where we get the word brutal from, right? Because Brutus is the key conspirator. That's a very brutal act in itself, right? The killing. It's multiple stabbing. Over and over again, stabbing an old man with knives. Pretty brutal. We don't see it very often on stage. All right, here we go. We've already had Duncan killed, but notice it wasn't shown. Now we are going to get to an actual murder on stage. And the way we're going to do it is quite provocative. First of all, we're going to have the two assassins joined by a third party. Now, some will argue this could be Macbeth himself. Others will argue that Macbeth has sent a third assassin just to make sure it's going to happen. Then you're going to have, this is a very brief scene. It only lasts on stage for about 2 minutes. That's it. Banquo will come on stage with his boy Fleance. He will say, "It looks like it's going to rain tonight." Then the assassins will say, "Let it come down," and they jump on top of him and they start stabbing him over and over again. In the process of stabbing Duncan or Banquo, the fire that he's holding, because it's what time of the day? Night. Drops. And in the darkness, right, Fleance gets away. So Fleance, the boy, will not be killed. Banquo will be killed. Notice the irony. They're trying to kill him at night. We would normally think the light going out would be a bad thing. But it's ironic, the light going out saves Fleance's life. The young boy is able to escape. And then at the end of this brief scene, we realize that Banquo's final words will continue with what we call our flight theme. Banquo will say to his boy, "Fly, Fleance, fly, which of course has some nice alliterative quality to it as well with all of those F sounds, right? Fly, fleance, fly. All right, here we go. Brief, real brief scene. How you kill somebody on stage.
But who did McGee join with us?
Macbeth.
And even with our mistrust, since he delivers our officers what we have to do to the direction just. Then stand with us. The west yet glimmers with some streaks of day. Now spurs the little traveller pace to gain the time lane, and near approaches the subject of our watch. Hark! Many horses.
Give us a light there! Oh!
Then to see, the rest are within the note of expectation already are at the court. These horses go about, Mr. Kyle, but he does usually, so all I do from hence to the palace they are making them. A light! A light! Dizzy. Sanctum.
It will be rain tonight. Let it come down! Sanctuary! Oh, fly, good friend! Fly! 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 Thou mayst revenge! Oh, stay! Who is back on the night?
What's not the way?
There's but one down, the sun is fled. We have lost best half of our effect.
Well, that's the way, and see how much is done.
All right, so we've got now the the killing of Banquo. Jot down in your notes real quickly. What do you find interesting about this scene? Although it is brief, you've got the way Shakespeare would often do this is on one side of the stage you have the assassins, on the other side of the stage you have Banquo. The audience recognizes that while the talking is going on by the assassins, Banquo can't hear it. In other words, psst, there. And Banquo and his boy are kind of like, yuckty, 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 walking across the stage. They completely do not have a clue what's about to happen. The audience already knows Banquo's about to get jacked. Now wait a minute, Mr. Durant, what is Shakespeare's pulling off here? What do we call that in a movie? When you know something's going to jump out and get the person, but it doesn't happen. And then it doesn't happen. And then it doesn't happen.
Bam!
Right. And then about the moment that you go, well, I guess it's not wham, that's when it happens, right? Good movie makers are always playing that game, aren't they? Like, for example, how many times in a scary movie, when the girl's walking through the room all by herself, does the kitty cat jump out and scare the poop out of her?
A lot.
So that everybody goes, ah! Right? So that later, right? See how that works? You got it. So let's point out for your notes. Shakespeare invents the idea of suspense. This is Shakespeare. When you go to movies today and you watch that kind of escalation slow, so notice what happens. Watch the genius crafting of this brief scene. So first of all, you get the two assassins, and they show up. And they ask the third guy, what are you doing here? You don't need to be here. We'll take care of the business. And the third assassin says, don't worry about it. I'm here anyway. Then on the other side of the stage, you see Banquo walking. You know Banquo is going to get jumped. So they're walking, talking. Hey, somebody give me some light. I need to, hey, it looks like it's going to rain tonight. And then the assassins jump out, let it come down. Of course, as they say it, bam, they start jacking. And then, of course, you got to talk this out so the audience understands what's going on, because these plays were not performed at nighttime. They were performed when there was light outside. So anytime there's night, you have to say it. And anytime there's darkness, you have to say it. And so the speaking here is the lights all went out. And in the process of the lights going out, young Fleance is able to get away. But wait a minute, there's the R word. Some of you put that in your notes and some of you didn't. Let's put it in our notes. Banquo uses the R word. What R word? You got it. This play will become a play of revenge. And the audience is going to want to know about that revenge thing. What's significant about the fact that Fleance will get away? What was the prophecy made to Banquo? You're right. You're not going to be a king, but your sons will be kings, which means that what? Fleance has to get away if Banquo's boys are going to be kings. Notice Banquo will not be a king because he just got jacked. But his boy Fleance is going to get away, which is a prediction. What's interesting about this? Already you can predict. How's Macbeth going to respond when he hears Fleance got away? Right, he's going to be in the oh crap moment, huh? Oh, no, because it's not enough to kill Banquo. In fact, truthfully, it's not Banquo he really needed killed. Who was it that he really needed killed? He really needed killed Banquo's boy, right? Fleance. Now that he knows Fleance got away, the potentiality of the prophecy coming true for Banquo is even more enhanced. All right, let's set up 1-4 now, or 3-4 now. Hey, this is one of the funniest scenes in all of Shakespeare. It's a reason why you got to watch this play. I wish I could have lectured this scene to you before you watched it last fall. You would have enjoyed it much better. I'll talk it through today. Well, then listen to it tomorrow, okay? Are you ready for this? This is the famous party scene of 3-4. Now, I say famous for a reason. Remember what Lady Macbeth said to her guy? Listen, we're about to have a party, and you look like you're going to a funeral. Come on, sleek o'er your rugged looks. You got to be happy. Macbeth will say, don't worry about it. I'm a good actor. I can do this. Onto the stage he will come with all of the royalty, and they're going to have this party. Macbeth will say out loud, really quickly, I wish Banquo was here, my best friend. Can't believe my best friend is going to miss my party. Then all of a sudden, off to the side will come one of the killers. He's got blood all over his face. Macbeth will ask him, is he done? And the murderer will say, yeah, he's done. I mean, he's got a knife right now sticking out the top of his head. That boy is dead. I put the knife in his brain myself. Macbeth will call him the best of the cutthroats, like, way to go, you're a good man. Which will remind us that earlier in the play, when Duncan was told about Macbeth killing somebody and cutting him from the groin to the gullet, pulling out all his guts and sticking his head on a pike, remember he called Macbeth an honorable or a gentleman, remember that? So he called him. Now Macbeth will compliment the assassin for being a cutthroat. Literally cuts the throat of his best friend Banquo. But then he asks about Fleance. And the assassin will say, yeah, kid got away. The minute that happens, Macbeth will start to go into this mind thing where he's like, oh, no. And the audience gets to watch Macbeth then have the weirdest next scene. He turns around to come back to sit down. And Lady Macbeth will say, come on, you got to sit down. We got to start the party. And Macbeth will say, there's not any place for me to sit down. And they're like, what are you talking about? There's an empty seat right here. And Macbeth will say, there's somebody in the seat. Macbeth's going to see Banquo's ghost show up. Now, this is fascinating because the ghost of Banquo will show up as Banquo, the actor. Only now he's going to have makeup on. So he's got like a knife sticking out the top of his head. And he's got wounds all over his face and body. And he comes walking in like a zombie. And he sits down in Macbeth's chair. The only problem is Macbeth's the only one that can see it along with the audience. Nobody else can see it. And so they're all like, what are you talking about? Dude, just sit down in the chair. Macbeth then will say out loud, which one of you has done this? And they're all like, what are you talking about? Macbeth completely loses it. Starts screaming and stuff because the ghost totally freaks him out of Banquo. Banquo will look right at Macbeth, right? And then Macbeth will kind of turn away. And in that time, the ghost of Banquo, the actor, gets up and walks off stage. Macbeth turns around, there's the chair, it's empty. He's like, oh. Okay, everything's cool. He gets ready to go back over. Onto the stage comes the ghost of Banquo again. This time Macbeth really does lose it. He just starts screaming and stuff. Immediately, Lady Macbeth figures out what's going on. He's seeing things. He's hallucinating. The other people that are at the table, they're just like, dude, what's up with Macbeth? This is our king. You know, they kind of go, yay, our great and mighty warrior king. And he's clear. He starts screaming. He will say, we have the saying in Texas, the guilty dog always barks first. Macbeth will say it out loud. None of you can ever say I did it. None of you can